YouTuber Swagglehaus concludes his video by saying, "No comic book is rare, not even the rare comics." I disagree, and let's clear up the misconceptions. There's a lot that Swagglehaus got right, and I appreciate him bringing up the issue. I've got a link to his video in the description box. One of his themes is that the term rarity is used too casually. I totally agree. Just go to eBay and you can see tons of common modern books being called rare, ridiculous, and misleading. He further supports this argument by showing hordes of raw ASM 129s, the first Punisher, and Hulk 181s, the first Wolverine. He highlights this quote. "A guy put into perspective for me how common even valuable comic books are. This is his self-described hoard book. I suppose I thought comics were more rare than they actually are." This pick makes me sick. Swagglehaus's response is like, "Where have you been? We all know that ASM 129 is not rare, and neither is Hulk 181. Totally agree. It's about here, though, that he really starts pushing the envelope. He suggests that there's books out there that most comic insiders consider rare, like Silver Age books and many Golden Age books, that aren't actually rare. He names Tales of Suspense 39, the first Iron Man, Journey into Mystery 83, the first Thor, Fantastic Four number 5, the first Doctor Doom, and even, in the Golden Age, gasp, Batman number 1. To support his claim, he references Anna Love's Instagram post. And just like Amazing Spider-Man number 129, we see hoarding of Crime Suspense Stories number 22, a Golden Age book. To the general point that there are some Golden Age books that aren't as rare as people think, I also concede. Before I get into the details of what I disagree about, let me acknowledge that Swagglehaus hedges a bit. He said, well, there are a few books that are actually rare. He shows Gobbledygook number 1, Suspense Comics number 3, and Pep Comics number 22. He also admits that the title "No Comic Book is Rare" is, in his words, literally a joke. In my words, it's clickbait, hyperbole to attract attention. Clickbait, of course, is not uncommon on YouTube. As a YouTuber myself, I've also had some clickbaity titles. So what is my beef? If someone is truly trying to understand rarity, his video doesn't help. Somebody could come away thinking that Hulk 181, Fantastic Four number 5, Crime Suspense Stories 22, and Batman number 1 should all be placed in the same bucket of not rare. While Swagglehaus uses a sledgehammer to make his points, I believe a finessed understanding is necessary. I'll borrow from a past video and refer to CGC Census to make a few points. You can find links to my past rarity videos in the description box as well. Let's start with this. The rarity of comic books is strongly correlated with age. I'm cherry picking a bit, but let's look at the CGC census counts of a few well-known comic books from 1938 to the early 1990s. The books from the 30s and early 40s are so tough, often with census counts below 100. In the early and mid-50s, we see books having counts of several hundred. And in the 60s, you can start seeing the numbers rise almost year to year. Collecting truly taking a foothold. The 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, forget about it. Let's take a look at that last book, ASM 300, the first appearance of Venom. To date, almost 37,000 have been slabbed, making it the most slabbed comic in the hobby. Some of these books still have value, like Hulk 181, but it's because they are so popular. And I stress, for a book to have 15 or 20,000 copies on CGC Census and to still sell for a lot of money, it means that demand must be ridiculously high for that book. You might be wondering, well, Keston, can you define rarity? That is tough, and if somebody pressed me, I would say if it's a high value book and the CGC Census count is 200 or less, I would start thinking about that book as being rare. Of course, rarity is on a continuum. So if a book has got 201, does that mean it's not rare? And if it's 200 or fewer, does it mean it's rare? I wouldn't go so far as that. But to me, as books go under 200, they start shading away from scarcity and go into rarity. Let's go back to some of the books that Swagglehaus mentioned and compare them to the benchmarks that I just provided. Here's AS 129, again, clearly not rare, about the same CGC count as Hulk 181. Let's move on to the Silver Age books. Fantastic Four number 5, Journey into Mystery 83, and Tales of Suspense 39 have census numbers that align with other Marvel keys from the early 60s, and they range from about the low 2000s up to the high 2000s. No surprise there, I never thought those books were rare. Let's take a look at Crime Suspense Stories number 22. Swagglehaus showed this book being hoarded, and he also showed ASM 129 being hoarded, the implication being that both are not rare. This book is semi-rare or scarce, but I wouldn't consider it rare. That said, I would guess that Anna and her husband are unusual, perhaps even unique in their hoarding of CSS22 and other pre-code horror books. By the way, one of those copies is probably one that I sold her husband about 10 years ago. My guess is that for every hoarder of Crime Suspense Stories number 22, there are dozens and dozens of hoarders of ASM 129 and Hulk 181. CSS 22 is not rare, but it's a hell of a lot rarer than those two other books. It's a crime to put them into the same rarity bucket. Remember those 3 books that Swagglehaus claimed were actually rare? Well, let's put them to the test. Let's compare them to a legitimately rare book, Action Comics number 1, and see how they stack up. Gobbledygook number 1, the predecessor to TMNT number 1. Yeah, it's super tough. Supposedly only 50 were made by photocopier. Going on CGC census, there's only 24 that are represented. Suspense Comics number 3, the infamous Schomburg cover, and the most expensive non-superhero comic, comes in with 43 on census. Rarer than a hen's tooth, even in mid-grade. Pep Comics number 22 is the first appearance of Archie, merely 36 copies on CGC census. So yeah, props to Swagglehaus for identifying 3 legitimately rare books. How about Batman number 1, Golden Age book from 1940, one of the top 5 most expensive comics in the hobby. Even with categories like Golden Age books, there's a spectrum of rarity. Out of the top 100 Golden Age books identified by Overstreet, guess where Batman number 1 ranks? It's 99th out of 100. In other words, there's only one book that's less scarce than Batman number 1. Which brings me to the last point. If you want to see the 10 rarest among the top 100 Golden Age books, check out this video. And to Swagglehaus and to all viewers, I look forward to future conversations on the topic. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you around real soon.